Hello everyone, welcome to Edubbey Global Solution once again. Today what we'll be looking at is market structure. What do we understand by market structure? First, in the first place, what do we mean by market? Market is a place where buying and selling takes place. We all know that. Now, what do we mean by market structure? Market structure is a term for the condition which exists in a market, including the numbers of what? Of firms. Of course, we knew what firm is before. That is an entity or a business organization. And for us to know the condition of a firm, of course, we have just how market is being made. Now we have the categories of market structure. Of course, there are two categories of market structure, which are competitive market and monopoly market. Now let us move forward. We move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we now have one of the categories of the market we said earlier. We have competitive markets here. A competitive market is a market which a number of firms that compete with one another for the purpose of producing goods and services wanted by the consumer. Now, in competitive market, there is free entry into and exit from the market. What do we mean by that? Free exit and free entry to the market means there must not be anything that will make it difficult for firms to enter or leave the industry, that is to start or stop producing the product. And there is also a period of keeping the price low when there is competitive, that is there will be a lot of suppliers in the market. As you can see here, we have a lot of people selling the product and we also have a lot of buyers at the same time. Now we move to the next slide. We have one past question here related to the competitive market. Now, which market is likely to be the most competitive? We have barriers to entry. We have the numbers of sellers. Now, in competitive market, of course, the barrier to entry is what? Is low, and there are a lot of number of sellers. Now let us check our options here. The barriers to entry high, low, and there are also the number of sellers are many. Now that is that, let us move to the next slide. We also have one past question here again. What is an outcome of a competitive market? What do you think can be the outcome of a competitive market, that is in which the many sellers compete with one another? We have high prices and low quantity. Is that so? Low prices and large choice, high profit and low quality, low profit and little choice. Of course, it should be low price and large choice. That's that. We move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we now have the second categories of our markets. We have monopoly markets here. Now, a monopoly market is a market structure that consists only one seller or what? Or a producer. Now, how do we mean? A monopoly consists of just only one seller. That means there will be a lot of buyer in the market. Now we have the characteristic of a monopoly market. Number one says it is regulated by single supplier. Of course, according to our definition, a monopoly is regulated by a single seller or supplier. Now, there are highly barriers to entry and exit. Of course, that is making it difficult for other firms to enter the market. As we explained earlier, in competitive market, we have free entry and exit. But here we have barrier to entry or exit, which means anything that makes it difficult for a firm to start or stop making a product. Now we also have price discrimination. Of course, price is determined by the one seller in the monopoly market, and also profit maximizer, because they have high profit in a monopoly market since there is only one seller there. Now we move to the next slide. We also have first question here. What do you think will cause profit to be high in a monopoly market. According to what we just discussed now, what do you think can cause profit to be high in a monopoly market? A. Barriers to entry, elastic demand for the product, high numbers of substitute for the product, or diseconomies of scale. Of course, it is barriers to entry. We are good to go now. We move to the next slide. We also have past question. Which combination is usually found in a monopoly? According to our definition, what do you think can be the combination of a monopoly among these options? We have single buyer and single seller. Is that so? Many buyers and many sellers. Of course, we do not have many sellers in monopoly. Single buyer and many seller, many buyers and single seller. Of course, we have single seller and many buyers in a monopoly market. Now we move to the next slide. Move to the next slide, we now have the advantages and disadvantages of monopoly. What do you think can be the advantages and disadvantages of a monopoly market? One, we have the economies of scale. Of course, we have discussed that earlier in our previous classes. We have lower average cost. That is where the average cost per unit of output will decrease with the increase of scale in the output being produced by a firm. We also have high profits can be used for research and development. Of course, there we have high profits in monopoly, since there will be many buyer and we will just have one single seller there. And we have the reward for getting patent can also encourage investment. Of course, our patent is the legal instrument that encourage what? Innovation. And firms with monopoly power may be the most efficient and dynamic also. Of course, they will be optimally allocated to serve each individual in the best way. Now we have the disadvantages of monopoly market. We have high prices for consumer. Of course, since they are the one that discriminate their price. The price may be high, at the same time the quality may be high. Now we also have less incentive to cut cost. We also have less choice for consumer. Consumer will not be able to choose what they want, since there is only one seller in the market. We have productive inefficiency also. Now we move to the next slide. We have past question. In some industries, a monopoly controls outputs and prices. Yes. What is the most likely impact of this on consumers? What do you think can be the impact of this on consumers being in the monopoly industry? Now we have higher profits, more choice, higher prices, higher taxes. What do you think can be the impact? Of course, it is higher price on consumer. It is higher price. Now that is that. We move to the next slide. Moving to the next slide, we still have one past question here. How is the government most likely to prevent the growth of monopoly? That is the growth of one seller in a market. Now, by encouraging merger in the private sector. Do you remember merger? It comes together of two or more firms. Do you remember that? Now, by reducing barriers to entry into an industry, by promoting the benefit of economies of scale, or by establishing nationalized industry. Of course, government can prevent the growth of monopolies by reducing barriers to entry into an industry. We move to the next slide. We still have activity here, which is past question. A private sector firm is the only supplier of rail services between two cities. Okay, what will stop the firm charging very high ticket price? What do you think can stop this firm in charging high ticket price? Barriers to entry into rail services? No. High cost of maintaining rail tracks? No. Government policies encouraging monopoly power? No. Competition from public road transport? Of course, if there is competition, it will stop the firm from charging high prices of consumer. Now this will be the end of the class. Stay tuned to our website www.edubay.com. See you in the next